Hey guys, Micah from Black Bear Custom Kydex. I've got a video for you today on these two sheets that I've just finished. One of them is this is an Ozark Trail. I don't know if it's called a camp hatchet or what. Let's see if it has a model on it. Some kind of hatchet from Ozark Trail. I don't think it has a specific name, but yeah, just the Ozark Trail hatchet. It's got these cool little hex wrench things in there, so a little bit of a multi-tool. It's really thin. I think this is only 1/8 of an inch thick or so, thereabouts, blade stock. So that makes it really difficult to get Kydex to actually grip it well. And especially when you look at the design and how it doesn't have like a handle, no scales to latch onto or anything. It's just kind of a complicated little design. Sometimes you'll find cutouts and hatchets and whatnot, and it is a really bad idea to mold anything into those spaces, because as you insert the blade into the sheath, there's going to be hot spots, just kind of streaks between each one of these and in front, in line with it. So that's a no-go. So in this particular case, what I opted with was essentially a completely loose fitting holder for it. But you can see here, I've actually carved the Kydex out to expose part of the blade stock, and then just added a soft loop as a retention strap right here. So all you have to do is pull that up to there and snap it shut, and that sucker is really, really well locked in place. That's not going anywhere. Likewise, there is a strap up here for the handle. Now the reason for this strap is because this is actually going to hang inverted, and it was a little bit of a creative solution for this, but you see this kind of set up sometimes for hatchets. It's basically a drop leg carry with the hatchet hanging inverted. This leg strap came off of his factory sheath for it, so I just kind of cannibalized it. It looked like it was something that he added to the factory sheath himself. And then what I did for the leg strap to hold it in place, typically I would do something like 2 D-rings like you see on this sheath here. D-ring on each side for the leg strap. But because there are no eyelets above and no eyelets behind, there really wasn't any option there. So what I did was created a hardware recess directly over the blade itself. You can see it's on both sides. I did it so that this could be totally ambidextrous. And I installed a little miniature molly lock on there and ran the leg strap through that. So it's actually kind of a good solution. This is meant to latch onto webbing, and this strap obviously is made of nylon webbing, so that works out. As far as the rest of the carry setup, obviously you've just got a D-ring here. Technically this is actually a Beach and Tactical leg strap. I buy some kind of like lengths of webbing from Beach and Tactical with hardware and buckles and all that, and I use that for my chest harnesses and leg straps. It's exactly the same strap that you see, because I keep grabbing that glove. It's exactly the same strap as you see installed here. Everything's identical. So I've just doubled it over a lot. And there is quite a bit of excess on it. I actually trimmed some of the excess off, but you can do that more if you need to. This is going to a client named Sean, by the way. So Sean, you can definitely trim that more if you need to. And the higher or the longer you make this, if you unweave it, you can make it drop lower on your person. But the longer you make it, obviously your stability snap here, this handle snap, is going to have to move. So for that reason, I actually made this movable. So you can adjust that as needed around it. And if memory serves, let me see. Yeah, I don't recall if I put an eyelet through this nylon loop, but this is actually 2 pieces. There's a loop going around the sort of the stem, and then there's a hardware holding on this cross section with the snaps embedded. So it's a pretty cool little setup. I'm really happy with how this came out. And then up top, sorry, this is a little bit chaotic video here, but up top we have a product from Holster Builder, Now it looks like a molly lock, and it can be a molly lock, but this is actually a really cool, or sorry, it's not by Holster Builder, it's by Dots. I think I bought it from Holster Builder. But this is really cool because it's also meant to work on belts, and it does have this little spacer bar, so you can adjust anything between, I think it goes 1.5, 1 3/4, and 2. So you can just remove it and replace it wherever you want to go for your belt. So I'm just going to throw it back at the bottom setting. There's no lockup on it or anything, but it'll stay shut really well until you engage that opener, and then it's open. To get the strap connected to it, I just used a piece of the same camo you see down here and pinned that webbing there. So this is all very strong, and it's a really cool little setup. The colors you're looking at here, I kind of chose OD green because that was what he wanted for the knife. So an OD green base, and then this is a newer Cryptek pattern. So the pattern itself is called Obscura, and the variant with the colors is called Driftwood. I thought that looked really cool with this, and kind of gives a little bit of consistency between the two Cryptek patterns here. So there we go. Let me know what you guys think of this hatchet setup. I think this is probably the first one I've ever done of like an inverted, drop leg hatchet carry. But if you guys are looking for some kind of smaller sized hatchet, I would say, probably nothing longer than like, I want to say like 14 or 15 inches would be the limit for most people. But if you're looking for a good way to carry, I think this is actually a really good option. And I would personally choose this inverted style carry above having it hanging from the belt like this, because this actually is a little bit more limited on mobility, unless you have some, kind of dangler setup like this and then a leg strap down here. But I think that would actually even be harder to draw. So this isn't so bad as far as, drawing and resheathing goes. But yeah, I'm a big fan. I really like this. So I'm probably going to make one for my own hatchet for when I go out. But let me know what you guys think, pros, cons, etc. I'd like to kind of know where the market's at and what everybody's thinking as far as all the objections or affirmations for this kind of design. So chime in below if you would. All right, now on to sort of the main event here. So this is a cold steel Frontier Bowie. This is a big knife, and it is a really complicated knife. Let's take a look here at the shape of it. We've got a lot of stuff going on. Obviously, the most pronounced thing on here would be this double guard. These are really large and very curvy, and just they don't lend themselves very well to being locked into a Kydex design, in my opinion. You get a big choil here, and you have these, I would, as far as a Kydex maker perspective is concerned, obnoxiously smooth contoured fullers, the full length of that blade. So yeah, as far as fullers go, these were really, really difficult to work with because they are just such a gradual curve, as opposed to something, more drastic. It's almost like a 90-degree, and it's usually narrower. Sort of the traditional fullers are a little bit easier to deal with because you can kind of fill them in and just wipe excess off of whatever you're using for it. This took a lot of creative filler, using tape in there, just, having to cut little ovals of tape, making them progressively different sizes. And it was a real pain in the butt. And then lastly, with this, we have this point in the blade being the widest and this point being the narrowest. That means if all I did was press the sheath around this, even if I filled in the fuller, filled in the choil, and put blocking behind these guards, you'd still have an issue of when you try to draw out, the knife would want to get stuck in the channel. So it'd want to get stuck, this part here, the wide part, would want to get stuck in the part that was formed around this section of the blade. So that's a real challenge. So all of those things took a long time to kind of prep the blade, but oftentimes taking the time up front to prep saves a lot of headache in the long run. So those of you guys who are getting into Kydex, or even if you've been at it for a long time and you just haven't worked with knives that have a lot of kind of curveball features like this, just take the time up front. Even if it takes you 4 or 5 hours to prep a knife, just the mere fact that after you press it, the work is pretty much done. That alone is worth its weight in gold. So, all right. This one is in OD green with Cryptek Highlander over it. Client sent me these D-rings. Well, actually, he had them sent to me from a manufacturer from Strapworks. So these are kind of Venom green. I assume he wanted these on there because the system itself is in a pretty earth tone kind of configuration. This is OD green with Cryptek Highlander on it. And obviously, nice dark brown handle. We got dark brown leather for the dangler. And then I chose Coyote. I thought matched this the best for the sling. So all of this could kind of disappear in the woods depending on the season or area of the world that you might be in the desert even. So these add a little bit of visibility. That's my assumption. I didn't actually ask him. He just asked if he could send me those, and I said, of course. So that's what we got on there for the D-rings. This is a Beechin Tactical Baldric Sling. It's the same maker as the harness arms that I buy from. So Jacob Peterson over the Prepper's Bunker Outdoors or Beechin Tactical. Best slings in the world. If you guys are looking for a Baldric sling like what you're looking at here, or a rifle sling, I would highly recommend you go check his work out. I don't think you're going to find anybody anywhere doing anything better than that. One of the reasons why I really love this sling in particular, you can get this one is called the Baldric sling, and then there's the same thing with no paracord, which he calls the light Baldric. I would recommend the Baldric above the light Baldric for 2 reasons. Number 1, because having paracord is better than not having paracord. And number 2, the padding it gives you on your shoulder actually makes this quite a bit more comfortable in my opinion. So especially if you're carrying something heavy, I definitely go with the regular Baldric so you've got some paracord. Now one thing you want to take note of is that the cord is actually woven, it's a cobra knot woven over the actual webbing, as opposed to some other makers, some other sling makers have a section of the sling is paracord. So God forbid you're ever in an emergency situation where you have to dismantle the paracord on your sling. Obviously it's a great survival tool, paracord. But if you need to dismantle it off of your sling and it is part of your sling, that means you no longer have a sling. Whereas with this, worst case scenario is that you still have a sling and you've got paracord to use on the side, and later on you have to retie it or buy more paracord. So it's really not a big deal. He's also done it on there. Sometimes you'll see paracord on there really tight, so it's a real pain in the butt to unweave. This is on there nice and solid. It's not going to move around on you, but at the same time, if you did have something like a pen or something that you needed to bring with you, you could fold up a map and stuff it under that webbing or that paracord. You could throw a pencil, a pen, whatever in there. You can actually use this as storage on top of it being easier to unweave if the event arises. So guys, please go check out Beechin Tactical. If I remember, I'll put the link in the description box down below. Pretty bad at that in general, but there you have it. For carry setups, obviously, apart from the sling, we have a dangler here. This is just a standard leather dangler, but I made this whole system ambidextrous. So what I chose for how to attach all this was I made a plate. That's what the OD green is. The plate is currently positioned with the mollies at exactly 3 inches apart. They are actually going through the eyelets along the edge of the sheath, so you can attach the mollies directly to the sheath if you want. However, I would highly recommend that you always go through the plate as well. And the reason is because if you were to attach the mollies directly to the sheath, they would be basically in line with the edge of the handle, making it really difficult for you to actually get them to latch onto the molly webbing. The webbing would have to kind of bow inward to get there, and that may or may not be possible depending on what kind of pack or vest you're trying to mount to. So having them extend outward, giving you an effortless ability to mount on, makes that possible. Additionally, because this D-ring Kydex is here, I also put some spacers on the mollies so that you can see when it's open, this is the surface that the webbing is going to be on. It's actually almost a perfect flush height with that Kydex. So you're not going to have any interference or anything, you know, trying to prevent you or push the MOLLE away from the MOLLE locks. So it should be very easy to attach your sheath there. Another thing, if you so chose, I just threw on the spacings here, these 3 pairs of holes that you see. Those are at 1.5 inches, which also is compatible with MOLLE webbing. If you do that, you're going to have to remove the D-ring here. So I probably wouldn't do that with a knife this size anyway. I just threw that on there in case. So you got that. And then obviously the dangler itself, you can configure this in a variety of different ride heights. Currently I have it set up where I personally carry, when I carry on a dangler or drop leg setup, which is where the top of the knife is basically flush with the top of my belt. And you can see that there are a number of holes here, a number of pairs. I think there are 6 pairs of holes in the plate and then 3 in the D-ring here, which means for each pair of holes you can adjust the height of the D-ring 3 different ways. So there's just a ton of different options there. I think that's pretty much it as far as features on this thing go. It's really, really nice sheath. I'm really happy with how it came out. The draw is very smooth on it. I wouldn't call it a ballistic draw, and there is one spot where the blade, I can't tell if it's on the top or on the bottom, but it just barely makes contact. So you can feel, I wouldn't call it a tight spot at all, but you can feel just a tiny little bit of rub. But that's no big deal. It's got a good click in. There is just the tiniest bit of play. The reason that I left the guards exposed the way that they are right now is because if you think about how high up these go versus where the blade is at, that would mean that the sheath would be just obscenely wide to fully cover those guards. So I thought this would be the better way to go. Plus, the less material you have actually interacting with these guards, I feel the easier it is to kind of control the retention. So dialing it down was actually what I had to do after pressing this. It was really, really stuck in there. So I had to reheat the opening and kind of fidget with it a little bit to get it to be exactly the retention that I thought was appropriate. But it's certainly not going to fall out on you. It's in there pretty tough. And at the same time, all you have to do, I just kind of push. If you're drawing right-handed, I would push toward the left side of the sheath on that inner wing. And you can see it's already free. So it's quite an easy draw. I'm really happy with how this came out. So guys, let me know what you think of this setup. Let me know what you think of adding a little bit of high visibility to your sheaths. I don't think that's the worst idea. Obviously, it doesn't really match, but if matching is your thing, you also might stand a chance of losing your gear if you set it down in the wilderness. So I think this is a smart idea. Yeah, all right. I think that's all I got for you guys. So like, share, comment, subscribe. Thanks for tuning in, and stick around for the next one. God bless.